Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video. And Ian This is about to lay down the law with regards to what is actually happening and not happening with regards to add-ons moving into the next expansion at midnight, because this is the most controversial decision that they are going to be making, and the information about it is kind of all up in the air everywhere, and it seems like nobody really understands exactly to the extent that this change is going to be made. So Ian is going to be clearing the air with this giant, massive post that we are going to be reviewing today. And as always, if you want to make sure that you stay up to date with news related to World of Warcraft, educational and entertaining content, then make sure to smash that subscribe button. Let's get started. So Blizzard right here. As we move into the beta phase of midnight testing and invite a much larger wave of players in to experience the expansion and provide feedback, I wanted to take time to recap the planned changes to add-on capabilities and the accompanying broader changes to combat and encounters. This will be a long post, but stick with me, there is a lot to cover. Over the course of the past year, we've been talking about add-on changes, but that communication has been spread across multiple videos, posts, interviews, and ongoing conversations with add-on authors. This fragmentation has contributed to confusion and concern across the community. The main goal of this article is to dispel as much of this confusion as possible and, hopefully, provide reassurance around these planned changes. Now, it kind of depends on what camp you're in, right? Are you camp no add-on, or camp some add-ons, or camp I don't want to lose any of my add-ons? Let me know in the comments down below, because that's going to, depend on a lot here. To be clear, it is entirely natural for players who have spent countless hours experiencing Azeroth through the lens of their favorite add-ons to feel nervous about the big changes to that ecosystem, while some players who use few or no add-ons may be shrugging with their shoulders. For many others, they may be the single largest change an expansion has ever made to World of Warcraft. We take none of this lightly. Add-on disarmament. Why? So if we know this is a risky change, why are we making it? Well, for over 20 years now, the customizability of the World of Warcraft user interface has been a pillar of the game, allowing players to use add-ons to tailor the look and feel of the game to suit their preferences. Numerous improvements to the base UI over the years have been inspired and informed by these community efforts, but the power we have given to add-on authors has always come with the risk of tools that can distort moment-to-moment gameplay, which has led to the development team to restrict add-on capabilities several times over the years. Now, in the original arena tournament format, there were no add-ons allowed, and it's because they didn't want the competition to devolve into which team had the better add-on developers, because you could develop add-ons that gave you such a competitive advantage over others, and they worried that players would hide those add-ons, and that's exactly what's happening with the Race to World First, by the way, as a major concern for them. And this is likely, it's finally fulminated into this giant moment where they want to deal with it. So how are they going to deal with it? We'll find out. In past incidents, we typically were able to address issues by limiting add-ons access to some specific functionality. Example, add-ons automatically selecting abilities and targets in the game's early days, or using player positions and clever math to build radar overlays a decade later. This time around, however, the cause of concern is subtler, more pervasive. Over the past few expansions, the community has increasingly shifted from a focus on add-ons that display information in a particular way to add-ons that process that information to drive combat decisions and recommendations. As an RPG with cast times and cooldowns governing most actions, a huge portion of skill in WoW has always rested in moment-to-moment decision-making. By its nature, a computer with access to complete information about the current combat state in WoW, allies and enemies' buffs and debuffs, active casts, and the cooldown state, health, and more, will be able to make the correct decision far faster than any human, and can do so with unerring accuracy. Such add-ons move beyond the realm of personal preference, offering an objective advantage in moment-to-moment combat. As a result, players often will be told to download specific add-ons to improve their class performance, or to defeat a specific encounter. Guilds or even pickup groups commonly require the use of specific add-ons for mid-combat coordination. While we have never designed for these add-ons, in the sense of making a specific encounter or class mechanic with the intent that players would write add-ons to solve a given puzzle, we have inevitably had to design around them for the past several expansions. We have to accept that even in a non-cutting edge content, a majority of players will turn to any available tools to make things easier. You don't want to be holding the group back, right? And that's for a lot of players. They download and they have to deal with setting up their UI and downloading possible new add-ons to give themselves as much of a competitive advantage as possible, right? Or you're going to get bullied out of the group and out of the content. That's another reason as to why to remove it. For example, when we design a boss in a normal or heroic difficulty raid, we have a tuning target in mind. We will risk causing frustration if we overshoot the mark. When we release an encounter, that puts up very little resistance. We often get feedback that the boss was unsatisfying. In a similar vein, when we're designing a class mechanic, we're trying to express class fantasy while also offering engaging moment-to-moment gameplay. But with add-ons instantly solving all of the raid coordination, challenge, or collapsing a nuanced combat decision into a single binary, we would get feedback supported by data that our design fell flat. And so we would add an extra layer of complexity to a class mechanic or tighten encounters tuning to give players less time to react in order to deliver the level of challenge and engagement that players are expecting. But that shift has left people who prefer to not use these add-ons at a clear disadvantage, making WoW less approachable in the process. And so we are looking to level the playing field. The guiding philosophy for our approach is straightforward. Add-ons should no longer offer a competitive advantage in WoW combat. They should remain as robust tools for aesthetic customization and personalized presentation of information. Note that I've seen people using Gladius in the beta. So, the default Arena Flames show all the information that Gladius does. Gladius just looks prettier. So you are able to, reallocate that to something if you prefer it to look visually a different way. But they should not be able to make a player more likely to succeed in combat against an encounter or another player. I've seen discussion around the word competitive, with some understandably noting that they aren't playing in the MDI or trying to get into the Raid Hall of Fame or Arena leaderboards, and wondering why a design shift about competitive advantage should apply to them. But the consequence of add-ons impact creep into all facets of the game, and this is an uneven playing field is experienced by all players. Whether someone is trying to defeat Dimensius on normal difficulty with their friends and family guild, trying to get a foothold in Mythic Plus, or trying to be the best of the best. Add-on disarmament. What's changing? So this is where they're going to be clearing things up, obviously. In pursuing these philosophical goals, we have tried to take a surgical approach that limits add-ons' abilities to process information, with the least possible impact on their ability to display it. Our engineering team has been regularly sharing updates to the API, which is short for Application Programming Interface, which is essentially the functions that add-on authors can use to access and manipulate WoW UI data with add-on authors. But a simplified explanation of what we're changing is as follows. Information about the current combat state is designated as a secret value that can be displayed by add-ons but not known by them. In essence, combat events are in a black box. Add-ons can change the size or the shape of the box, and they can paint it a different color, but what they can't do is look inside the box. So in Midnight, add-ons can still change the location of your buffs or debuffs, and the size and shape of associated frames. They can change the size and shape and texture of enemy nameplates and cast bars and many UI elements, but they can't know with certainty whether you or your target have a specific debuff currently active, or what the cooldown of the given ability is. So cooldown trackers, basically, is not going to work. So something like Omnibar, Omni-CD, interrupt trackers, interrupt bar, those won't work. But if you have some sort of health bar frame you like, it can take all the existing information and reskin it the way that you want. Or if I want Gladius, right, because I like the way Gladius looks as opposed to the default frames, that's available. So maybe it's not going to be as cataclysmic as maybe we were first anticipating. We debuted our alpha test with the strictest version of this rule set, wanting to avoid a frustrating cat and mouse situation with add-on authors pointing out loopholes in our logic and us needing to keep tightening things down to preserve a level playing field. Whereas we have historically disabled all add-ons in early weeks of an expansion alpha testing, this time we invited numerous add-on developers to the first wave of our test. We wanted to give them a head start on updating their add-ons and to hear early feedback on pain points. That input has been invaluable so far and led us to loosen restrictions in numerous areas that were causing needless collateral damage. So they are working hand in hand with add-on developers. They're not just trying to do this solo dolo. Even with this more focused approach, we knew that limiting add-ons' ability to parse combat events in real time would have a significant impact on a wide range of popular and benign add-ons, such as damage meters that offer immediate insight into performance. Now, I wonder how raid logging is going to work if they can't access that data. If Blizzard's going to directly extract that, or raid log's dead. I wonder if they'll address that actually. Boss ability timers that have been a part of raiding since the various earliest days of WoW, and tools that make the game accessible to players with a range of disabilities. So alongside the Secret Values project, our team has been working on building up native solutions in many of these areas, as well as creating new API hooks to allow add-on authors to access protected information in ways that don't risk competitive integrity. We've been rolling out base UI features over the course of the year, and that will continue during the Midnight Beta. The Legacy of Arathor content update for 11.1.7 introduced the assisted highlight and one-button rotation tools to help players learn new specs, so the Hikili type of deal, the Hikili replacement. We implemented an early working version of the cooldown manager in the 11.1.5 content update, knowing that needed a lot of iteration, but wanting to ensure that we were getting all the needed feedback as it is a live environment, whereas Midnight will feature a much more refined version. And I found the cooldown manager actually useful. As like an add-on or as just a UI addition, as someone who didn't even use a lot of add-ons before within the game, because I'm someone who I copy the tooltip over like 70 times or something to be able to see the cooldown of something. I don't really feel like I have to do that actually with the new cooldown manager. Midnight includes a new boss warning system, which allows players to see which boss mechanics are upcoming while leaving the choice of how to handle them in the player's hands. So I think he's talking about add-ons that can like put raid markers on the ground as things are happening and a marker above your head, so you move and follow it as it's happening. Maybe that's what he's talking about. That's not going to happen. We are in the process of adding a range of native accessibility improvements, such as a built-in combat audio alert system that allows players to use text-to-speech and other audio cues for everything from player health to common combat events. So I think this is to try and aid with players who are in the disability camp a bit. Over the course of the beta, we will be releasing improvements to our raid frames for healers, a built-in damage meters tool with server-side validation, and more. Please make the damage meter work. Oh my god, I've been waiting for the damage meter to work for seemingly forever. While we work on limiting the ability of add-ons to give high-end performance advantage, we want to ensure that the baseline WoW experience is as approachable and accessible as ever. That is the goal. Get as many returning and new players back into the game so they don't feel like they're being hindered down by needless bloat, complexity, and all of these external things that they need to download, right? That is the main goal. We know that if we are limiting add-ons functionality, we need to give all the players the information they need to succeed, and we need to tune our game accordingly, along with much clearer visuals and audio telegraphs. And I've been doing a lot of the dungeon content. I feel like it's a lot better as far as visual clutter. That may also mean having an extra second or two to react to a mechanic or a few other things occurring simultaneously to keep cognitive load manageable. This makes me think that the content is going to be a bit easier. Our end goal is for any given piece of content in Midnight, a Mythic 10 dungeon, a normal difficulty raid, an 8-tier delve, to be roughly as challenging as it was in prior expansions, but for that challenge to be more fairly distributed across the player base. Okay, I mean, this is a risky goal because they try to do the same thing in Cataclysm with heroic dungeons, and they ended up being really hard, and it caused a lot of players to quit. So, like, I feel like if they hit the mark too hard here, it might be bad. Why are some cosmetic add-ons breaking? I'd like to take a moment to address a technical nuance here. Many players have expressed confusion at seeing reports of some popular cosmetic add-ons no longer functioning as expected in Midnight. If we are only focusing on combat calculations, why are we seemingly breaking an add-on that only changes the appearance of player and target frames? That is never our intent, but there are a few reasons why this might be the case currently in Midnight test builds. The myriad authors who have created add-ons for WoW over the years have each chosen from among countless different approaches to structuring their code. As a result, two add-ons that provide nearly identical player-facing functionality might be quite dissimilar under the hood, and thus be affected very differently by the changes coming in Midnight. Some add-ons can and will work just fine in Midnight, but they may have yet to be updated by their author. The work that they need to do may be very straightforward, or may take a more significant amount of time. Every expansion in WoW's history has required tweaks to all but the simplest of add-ons. Thus, the out-of-date add-ons pop up with each new major patch. Other add-ons, however, rely on implementations that don't merely reskin the pieces of the WoW UI, but rather rebuild them from scratch using raw data about the current combat state. Unfortunately, that particular approach, while by no means inherently wrong, has limitations under our new secret values system. While there are some areas where we cannot bypass these limitations without opening the door to computational logic, we are trying to do everything possible to minimize collateral damage. For example, recognizing that many players enjoy abstract and custom ways of representing their current count of runes on a Death Knight or Holy Paladin. We recently made all class secondary resources fully non-secret. So soul shards, things like that. I don't think it's going to be a huge deal as far as like competitive advantage in PvP. Like to know how much holy power or soul shard someone has, that's never been really like a huge game deciding factor, which is all I can think of being happening with that. We are committed to continuing to work with add-on developers and with the community at large to provide support for robust customization with this new framework. I want the health bars separated so I can make them taller and shorter and wider and thinner at the same time. Like the fact that they only get bigger and smaller and I don't have those two independent axes, I need them on independent axes. Add-on disarmament, why now? Another common question I've heard is why do this now? Why not wait until all of our built-in functionality is fully polished and has had multiple rounds of feedback? I'm going to guess because it's a selling point for the expansion, right? I mean, how many of the biggest content creators on these platforms talks about how add-ons are the reason that WoW is in decline and is losing players because they have to download all this stuff, and it's a good selling point, I would think, but maybe there's more to it. When I first started talking about our concerns with the impact of add-ons in the modern game nearly a decade ago, we were still evaluating the feasibility of a solution, as well as the right time frame. But we also wanted to gauge community sentiment around the general issue. WoW's history is littered with examples of the dev team trying to solve perceived problems that most players weren't particularly concerned about. And we wanted to reassure ourselves that we weren't headed down the same path here. We were happy to see a lot of positive reactions to the discussion. I'm not going to pretend that there was unanimous support, but the average take was something along the lines of, it would be great if add-ons weren't required, but I'm not sure I trust Blizzard to pull it off. And that is very fair. This is a huge and challenging project, and I don't expect blind faith in the absence of results. Convinced that we were on the right track with the aims of the project, we shifted to building a roadmap of what it would take to pull off this transformation. The team found that progress on the UI engineering front was moving faster than expected, both in terms of the secret value system and in terms of implementing some of the replacements we knew we needed. That made readiness for the launch of Midnight a real possibility. These changes pretty much have to be made on an expansion boundary, allowing us to build a full slate of content and systems that are meant for a post-add-on disarmament world. Trying to ask players to relearn content mid-expansion without the tools they were using the day before would be a sure recipe for unhappiness. I think it could be felt that way even regardless, because like they're even going from Dimensius to the next raid, that could still be felt. And no matter how much we improve our native UI, we can't build mechanics that are trivially solvable by add-ons and expect the players won't use those tools so long as they still function. In the end, we were faced with the decision of either signing up for a couple more years of designing our content around powerful add-ons in ways that make it impossible for us to serve our whole community, or moving forward now and finding solutions within this new paradigm. And so add-on disarmament is coming with Midnight. It's happening. And the team is fully committed to giving the community all the support required, tweaking the logic around what is restricted, and making new access points available to add-on developers in order to make this transition successful. It's going to happen. It's not going to not happen. Add-on disarmament and what is next? As we kick off the beta, we're excited to see a ton of new players get access to Midnight's content, but we are especially eager to see structured testing of the endgame. The changes to add-ons don't come in a vacuum. They are complemented by a new approach to building raid encounters, dungeon pulls, combat mechanics, and more. So we are looking forward to seeing players have a holistic experience, and we are looking for feedback, not just on our UI or evolving add-on capabilities, but on aspects of the endgame content that might feel unclear or unfair without some of the tools you are accustomed to using. So I think for as far as class spells, more distinct visuals and animations on them, so you don't feel like you need add-ons to track every cooldown, because some cooldowns on classes are borderline invisible, right? Something like a Shadow Dance on a Rogue, there's a lot less visually signaling than Avenging Wrath, and maybe it should be because it's a rogue and they're sneaky, but at the same time in a lot of cases it's borderline invisible, right? Maybe improving those. When we look at Overwatch and the abilities they're using in Overwatch, they're very clearly distinctly displayed. They even have hero callouts for ultimate abilities and such. We're going to be watching closely and listening to feedback throughout the beta. To us, the quote-unquote beta designation means that we have the entirety of the game's content ready for testing, but it is far from an end point to Midnight's development. We will be agile and adaptive in close partnership with our community as we roll out regular updates in the weeks and months ahead, improving our base UI experience, adjusting tuning or presentation of mechanics, and adding new functionality for add-on developers. Thank you for taking the time to read through through this. I understand that this amount of change can be scary and that it's natural to worry that the long-term benefits aren't worth the short-term disruption. We're going to do everything possible to ensure that our experience with Midnight is a great one, that customization and self-expression remain hallmarks of WoW's UI, and that the game is more approachable than ever. Ian Hazzikostas, game director. I feel like a lot of people like on the pro add-on camp, they've kind of just thrown in the towel. They're probably not even like testing or doing. They're just like they've thrown in the towel. Every tweet is just negative. I just feel like it's not very like, what's the word, like participative. They're not participating in it because they're so worried about it or distraught by it that they're really not even trying to give it a fair chance in a lot of cases. It just seems like a lot of doubt. Maybe those people don't have access to the beta. I'm not too sure. Because I think this is a good step. I think feeling like players are peer pressured to download these add-ons is silly. The amount of extents that hoops they have to jump to design mechanics is silly. I think overall it should be a net positive, obviously barring that they can create a good baseline experience, which they seem very willing to listen to our continued feedback and want us to participate in so that the game can be better as a whole. And we kind of need to just get over this kind of scary point of like, I'm basically losing my crutch, right? Like for a lot of these add-ons, for a lot of players, they're crutches. They pop up markers on the ground, tell them where to move and how to do everything when it comes to combat. So losing that crutch will be very daunting initially, and that's understandable, but they are willing to play through this to make sure that that doesn't happen as a result of the testing. So I'm going to be participating in as much testing as I can, right? I've been here, I'm streaming every day, so make sure to hit the subscribe button or follow over along on my Twitch channel as well, because I want to do the most that I can to make Midnight as exciting as possible, because obviously WoW has been a big part of my life for so long, and I would like it to continue to be a big part of my life, as well as for everybody else who aims to enjoy it and to make it as big and successful as possible moving forward. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. Do you think they can actually deliver on it? After reading this, how extensively they've been interacting with add-on developers in particular, I'm a lot more confident, especially given my experience with the new baseline UI. There's a couple of like independent tweaks, things like that, that I would personally like made to it for my own experience. But overall, the fact that I can just switch the default frames to Gladius if I want to, things like that, I think it's likely moving in the right direction. I'm tired of this kind of weak aura gameplay. Something pops up, moves your character, tells you where to go. I'm kind of over that. I'm ready to go back to paying attention to what the game has to display and simplifying down the classes so you're not constantly tracking all these cooldown reduction modifiers and things like that. I personally like this. I think that this is a good time also to do it, seemingly, and as long as we can give the good amount of feedback to improve the baseline experience, that it shouldn't be as daunting, I think, as intimidating as a lot of players, mostly on the competitive PvE side, are stating that it's likely going to turn out to be. But that's it for me here today. Thank you guys very much for watching the video. The law has been laid down. They're going through with it. It's happening.